Well, that was all it took to set Tari off. How dare this woman disrespect her like that? In a moment of pure rage, Tari reached out and slapped Mama Timi right across the cheek. The sound echoed through the market like a thunderclap. Without a word, Amina leapt forward like a lioness defending her pride. Before Tari could blink, Amina had pounced on her, sending her crashing to the ground. The market women cheered as Amina delivered a swift and satisfying lesson in humility, her blows landing with precision. In the heart of Zuba, where the city lights sparkled like diamonds scattered across the night sky, life moved at a fast pace. Skyscrapers rose high into the clouds, sleek cars sped down bustling streets, and the people, they were as vibrant and dynamic as the city itself. This was where dreams were chased, fortunes were made, and the elite lived their best lives. And at the center of it all was Orin Towers, a club where the city's most beautiful and affluent gathered to see and be seen. You can call it the epicenter of Zuba's social scene, where power, beauty, and wealth collide under the shimmering chandeliers. Orin Towers was alive tonight. The air was thick with music and laughter, the scent of expensive perfumes and colognes mingling as the well-dressed crowd flowed through the room. And among them, shining brighter than most, was Tari. Now, Tari wasn't just any city girl. No, she was a Zuba girl, a true daughter of the metropolis. Her beauty was the kind that made heads turn and whispers follow. She had smooth caramel skin that caught the light in all the right places and long dark braids that cascaded down her back. She knew she was beautiful, and she carried it with the kind of confidence that only years of being admired could bring. Her sharp cheekbones and full lips formed a face that could have graced any magazine cover, and her sense of style, impeccable. Tonight, she was draped in a yellow designer gown that hugged her figure perfectly, every inch of her screaming luxury. But beneath all that beauty was a sharp mind, a woman who knew what she wanted and exactly how to get it. Afia, her closest friend, stood beside her. Afia was no slouch either, slim, tall, with a face that was softer, more delicate. Her beauty was quiet, the kind that snuck up on you when you least expected it. But beside Tari, she often played the role of the shadow, the friend who admired her queen bee, without ever competing for the crown. Tonight, like every other night, she was content to let Tari take center stage. The music blasted from the speakers, bass shaking the floor beneath their feet as elegantly dressed clubbers filled every corner. The atmosphere was electric, pulsating with the energy of the city's elite. For Tari, this was home. This was where she thrived. As she sipped her drink, one eye on her phone and the other on the room, something caught her attention. No, someone. A car had just pulled up to the entrance, but not just any car, sleek and glimmering, like a jewel under the streetlights. The kind of car that told you, without a word, that the person stepping out was important. Her eyes tracked the vehicle with the precision of a hunter, and then he stepped out. Enter Lekan. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of effortless swagger that made the whole room pause for just a second. His skin was a rich chocolate brown, his jaw sharp, and his eyes focused and intense. He wore his wealth lightly. He didn't need to show it off with flashy clothes or oversized chains. Instead, his tailored white kaftan spoke for itself, and the way he moved told you that he was someone who had long grown accustomed to power and respect. Handsome? That was an understatement. Lekan had a magnetism that pulled people toward him without him having to say a word. Tari's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't the kind of woman who got distracted easily, But there was something about Lekan. And if there was something Tari knew how to do, it was go after what she wanted. She didn't say anything at first, just observed, her sharp eyes following him as he entered the party with an air of calm confidence. Afia, ever the observant one, noticed Tari's distraction. She nudged her with a knowing smile. Babe, na wetin you dey look so? Her tone was playful, teasing. Tari didn't even blink, a small smile playing on her lips as she watched Lekan make his way through the crowd. See as this guy fresh. That's my next target, she whispered, her voice low, full of determination. She wasn't wrong. Lekan was fresh, the kind of man who walked into a room and owned it without saying a word. But Tari? Tari had never been one to wait for things to come to her. She rose from her seat, moving with purpose. Her hips swayed as she walked, her braids bouncing with each confident step. Without missing a beat, she positioned herself by the bar, her eyes still locked on her prize. It was all too easy for her to slip into the flow of the room, making sure she was right where she needed to be. Lekan noticed her almost immediately. How could he not? Tari had a way of drawing attention without trying too hard. Their eyes met just for a second, and in that moment, Tari knew she had him. She smiled, walking up to him like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Hi, she said, flipping her braids over her shoulder with casual elegance. Her voice was smooth. I'm Tari. First time seeing you here. Lekan raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed by her directness. He smiled back, a smile that was both polite and intrigued. I'm Lekan, he replied, his deep voice carrying effortlessly over the music. Just visiting some friends. They exchanged numbers as easily as if it had been preordained. Tari didn't waste time. She knew what she wanted, and now she had him. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of dates, fancy dinners, and gifts. Lekan was everything she had hoped, wealthy, generous, and more than willing to spoil her. And Tari? She reveled in it, soaking up every moment. Her friends, especially Afia, couldn't hide their envy. But Tari? She lived for this. She lived to be the center of attention, to be admired, and now she had the ultimate prize by her side. Now, 2 months into their whirlwind romance, Tari was living what some might call the soft life. Lekan, always full of surprises, whisked her off to the finest restaurants, draped her in designer outfits, and made sure she was the envy of every girl in Zuba. From day one, he knew how to make her feel like a queen, and she wore that crown with pride. On a cool evening, they found themselves at Liba Lounge, perched high above the city. The views were as spectacular as the evening breeze, and as they sipped on cocktails, Tari had already mentally lined up the photos she would post on social media later, hashtagging her luxury life. Everything seemed perfect. But life has a funny way of messing with perfection, doesn't it? Just as Lekan was about to ask her what she wanted for dessert, his phone rang. It was Mama Timi, his no-nonsense, straight-to-the-point mother. And of course, she wasn't calling to exchange pleasantries. Oh no, she had something more pressing on her mind. Lekan, she started, her voice strong and clear. I hope you found someone. I'm coming next week, and if you don't have a wife by then, you'll marry the girl I'm bringing from the village. No more excuses. Now, if there's one thing Lekan knew about his mother, it's that when she spoke like this, she meant business. Mama Timi wasn't bluffing, and Lekan, well, Lekan wasn't ready to leave his fate in the hands of some village matchup. He could already picture it, a girl fresh from the farm, completely out of touch with the lifestyle he'd built. She'd probably have her hair wrapped in a scarf, speak only in the local dialect, and wouldn't know her way around Zuba. He glanced across the table at Tari, who was busy scrolling through her phone, oblivious to the bombshell his mother had just dropped. And that's when it hit him. In a split second, without much thought, Lekan blurted out, "Will you marry me?" Tari blinked, her perfectly manicured fingers freezing mid-scroll. For a moment, she wasn't sure she'd heard him right. "Wait, what did you just say?" she asked, her voice a mix of excitement and disbelief. Her heart was racing, her mind already fast-forwarding to wedding bells and diamond rings. Lekan leaned in a bit and added, "Yeah, of course, I have your ring, but, it's still overseas, on water. Shipping delay," he lied, doing his best to keep a straight face. "Are you serious?" she asked, trying to play it cool. Lekan nodded, his heart pounding slightly, but for entirely different reasons. And just like that, without much hesitation, Tari agreed, in that rooftop restaurant under the glow of city lights. Little did Tari know, though, that this wasn't just about love. This was survival. Udu Market, a vibrant and chaotic marketplace in Zuba City. It's the kind of place where the scent of fresh produce mixed with the noise of bargaining fills the air. But on this particular day, Tari, our city girl, was a bit too focused on her own world. You see, Tari had plans, big ones. She was determined to win over Mama Timi with her delicious plantain and eggs. But here's the thing about Tari. You'd sooner catch her texting her friends than paying attention to the real world around her. And that's exactly what she was doing. Her thumbs were flying across her phone screen, gushing to her friends about how she was going to meet her future mother-in-law and charm her with her cooking skills. She was so engrossed, in fact, that she didn't even see the sturdy figure of Mama Timi standing by a pepper seller, haggling like a seasoned market woman. Now, Mama Timi was no ordinary woman. Short, round, and radiating the kind of authority that makes even grown men stand straighter. She was not someone you'd want to cross. Her head was wrapped in a brightly colored scarf, and her skin gleamed with the richness of the sun. Her eyes, oh, they could pierce right through you, but today they were focused on negotiating a fair price for the yam she intended to prepare for her son. As fate would have it, Tari, too busy tapping away on her phone, bumped right into Mama Timi. Her heels, oh, those beloved heels, scraped the dusty market ground. And of course, Tari being Tari, she immediately flared up. "Madam, are you blind? You just dirtied my heels. My husband got these for me in New Orleans," she snapped, her voice dripping with entitlement. She gave Mama Timi a once-over, clearly unimpressed by the older woman's simple attire. Now, Mama Timi was not one to take nonsense from anyone, least of all a girl who thought the world revolved around her shoes. But she had more important things to deal with, like securing quality yams. So she did what any wise woman would do in such a situation. She hissed. That's right. She let out a long, dismissive hiss and turned back to her bargaining, completely ignoring Tari's outburst. Well, that was all it took to set Tari off. How dare this woman disrespect her like that? In a moment of pure rage, Tari reached out and slapped Mama Timi right across the cheek. The sound echoed through the market like a thunderclap. The nearby market women gasped in unison, their hands flying to their mouths. Even the men selling across the road stopped to stare. Mama Timi now was standing there in disbelief. Disbelief that this child had dared to lay a hand on her. But before she could even react, a figure emerged from behind her. Amina, the village girl Mama Timi had brought with her to introduce to Lekan. Amina, all grace and beauty, was the embodiment of a perfect African queen. With her smooth, deep brown skin and large, almond-shaped eyes, she moved with a quiet elegance that belied the fire within her. Dressed in a simple yet stylish wrapper, she had a demeanor that made her stand out even in the bustling market. But don't let that calm exterior fool you. Amina was no pushover. Without a word, Amina leapt forward like a lioness defending her pride. Before Tari could blink, Amina had pounced on her, sending her crashing to the ground. The market women cheered as Amina delivered a swift and satisfying lesson in humility, her blows landing with precision. Tari's designer purse was flung to the side, her phone forgotten in the dust. By the time the market women intervened and dragged Amina off her, Tari's once perfect face was bruised and her pride shattered. And then, as if that weren't enough, Mama Timi stepped forward and delivered two perfectly aimed slaps, one for each cheek. The sound was sharp, and Tari, still dazed, barely registered it. The older woman smiled at Amina, proud of her, then turned, packed her yam inside the bag, and walked away as if nothing had happened. Amina, still radiating calm after the storm, followed her. As for Tari, well, the poor girl fainted right there in the market, and an ambulance was called to whisk her off to the hospital. She ended up in a hospital bed with bandages on her head. Lekan had been pacing around the living room, glancing at the clock every few minutes. His mother, Mama Timi, was due to arrive at any moment, but Tari hadn't arrived. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He frowned when he saw Tari's name flash on the screen, but the voice on the other end wasn't hers. Sir, this is the hospital. The owner of this phone has been admitted after an incident. His heart sank. Tari? Admitted? Without wasting another second, Lekan grabbed his car keys and rushed to the hospital. The drive was a blur. When he arrived, he found Tari bruised and bandaged. She was more irritated than injured, but he didn't ask too many questions. He cleared the hospital bill, helped her into the car, and drove her home. As soon as they walked through the door, the rich aroma of pounded yam and egusi soup hit them. Lekan's stomach growled despite the stress of the day. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Mama Timi had arrived. But when a stunning young woman sauntered out of the kitchen, Lekan froze. She was dressed in a fitted crop top and a bum short that hugged her curves. Her skin was smooth and radiant, her hair neatly braided. For a moment, Lekan's brain short-circuited. Was this his mother? Mama, is that you? He blurted out before his mind could catch up with his eyes. The girl's lips curled into an amused smile. No, I'm Amina. I came here with your mom. Lekan blinked. This was the village girl? The same one Mama Timi had been raving about? He had expected someone, well, more traditional. Someone in a simple wrapper, shy and soft-spoken. But Amina, she was nothing like that. She looked like she had just stepped out of a city fashion magazine. And that was no accident. Mama Timi, never one to leave things to chance, had enlisted the help of her old friend's daughter, who owned a boutique in the heart of Zuba. Together, they had selected clothes that would make Lekan see the beautiful village girl in a completely new light. Lekan couldn't help but stare. Amina looked like she belonged in the city. The transformation was striking, and it was working. Just then, Tari, with her head wrapped in a bandage from her market brawl, came closer. Her eyes immediately locked onto Amina, sizing her up. There was something vaguely familiar about the girl, but Tari was too distracted by the pain and jealousy bubbling up inside her to notice. Tension hung in the air, thick and ready to snap. Before anyone could speak, Mama Timi strode out of the kitchen, beaming with pride. "Lekan, have you seen your wife?" she announced, as if she had just presented him with a shiny new car. Tari's face twisted with rage. "Who is this? I'm the wife here," she yelled, pointing a shaky finger at Amina. That was when the penny dropped. Tari's eyes went wide as she finally recognized the older woman standing beside Amina. It was her, the woman she had slapped at the market. Mama Timi's smile vanished. Her eyes hardened as she stared at Tari. You, You are the girl from the market? She said, her voice low but filled with disbelief. Tari's bravado crumbled like a cookie under pressure. She stepped back, stammering. I, I didn't know she was your mother. This is a mistake. I'll call the police. This can't be happening. But Lekan, now piecing together the whole story, raised a hand to silence her. Enough, he said, his voice calm but firm. There's no need for the police. You slapped my mother? Tari stood there, gaping, as if she couldn't believe what was happening. But Lekan didn't wait for her to respond. He pointed toward the door. Leave. Tari's face flushed with humiliation and anger. She opened her mouth to argue, but the look in Lekan's eyes made her think twice. Without another word, she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Silence fell over the room. Lekan sighed, running a hand through his hair. He was exhausted from the day's events, but as he glanced over at Amina, who had been quietly standing by, something shifted inside him. There was a quiet grace about her, an unassuming beauty that caught him off guard. She smiled, a little shyly this time, and Lekan couldn't help but steal another glance. Mama Timi, ever the matchmaker, grinned knowingly. Amina, please serve your husband and mother-in-law, and let's forget about that idiot. They all sat together to eat, discussing the event of the market and how Amina saved the day. Mama Timi couldn't be more proud. The morning after Mama Timi's departure was unusually quiet. Lekan found himself pacing around the house, wondering what the day would bring. He was used to the fast pace of the city, the constant buzz of activity. But today felt different, more peaceful, almost serene. He glanced at Amina, who was already up, tidying the living room with the kind of ease that came naturally to her. Her beauty was effortless, and her grace, even in the simplest tasks, was something that stirred curiosity. The afternoon came with a knock on the door. Lekan knew who it was before he even opened it, his friends. Word had spread quickly that the village girl had arrived, and naturally, they wanted to see her for themselves. Kito and Adeniyi, his closest friends, barged in with wide grins, eager to witness what they expected to be a mismatch. Lekan, so your village babe has arrived? Kito teased as they made their way into the living room. They expected someone plain, someone timid, someone who'd blend into the background. But when Amina walked in, their jaws nearly hit the floor. Gone was the image of a stereotypical village girl. Amina was dressed in a chic red gown, her hair neatly braided, her skin glowing under the soft light. She carried herself with a confidence that rivaled the most elegant city ladies. Good afternoon, Amina greeted them with a smile, her English clear and precise, every word gracefully articulated. Kito and Adenia exchanged glances, dumbfounded. Lekan, you didn't tell us she was this refined? Adenia stammered, still trying to process how wrong their assumptions had been. Amina moved gracefully into the kitchen, and within minutes, the house filled with the mouth-watering aroma of jollof rice and fried chicken. When she returned with a tray of food, the boys couldn't help but stare. Lekan noticed the way his eyes lingered just a little too long on her, and a sudden pang of jealousy hit him. He cleared his throat, shooting Kito a look. So, how's your business these days? Lekan asked, diverting the conversation before things got awkward. But the admiration didn't stop there. As they ate, Amina joined in the conversation, speaking with intelligence and wit, keeping up with their jokes and banter. By the end of the meal, Kito and Adeni were thoroughly impressed. They couldn't stop singing her praises. Lekan, you're lucky, oh. Adenia nodded in agreement, still eyeing Amina with admiration. Village girl, more like city queen. Lekan didn't miss the lingering glances his friends kept throwing Amina's way as she sat on the couch watching TV. His jealousy grew, though he masked it with a smile. After a few more jokes, Lekan stood up. All right, guys, I think it's time to go. Don't want you overstaying your welcome, he said, half joking, but firm enough for them to get the hint. Reluctantly, his friends left, still shaking their heads in awe at the surprise package Mama Timi had delivered. Once they were alone again, Lekan and Amina sat in comfortable silence for a while, but Lekan's curiosity was piqued. Amina, you're so different. What's your story? Amina hesitated for a moment, then began to open up. She told him about her life and how she was in her second year of university. But then tragedy struck. Her parents died in a car accident, leaving her with no choice but to drop out and return to the village to live with her aging grandfather. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed for a moment as she recounted the hardships of adapting to a rural life she hadn't anticipated. I had dreams, Lekan, big ones. But life, it took a different turn, she said quietly, her voice trailing off. Lekan felt a knot form in his chest. There was something deeply moving about her story, her resilience, her quiet strength. Amina, you deserve more. You deserve to finish what you started, he said softly. I'll make sure you do. We'll get you back into school. Amina looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise. Really? Really? Lekan nodded. It was a promise he intended to keep. As time passed, their bond deepened. Lekan found himself drawn to her not just for her beauty, but for her intellect, her strength, and her compassion. Slowly, but surely they fell in love, not the whirlwind romance of city life, but something more profound, something rooted in mutual respect and admiration. Amina's presence filled Lekan's once chaotic life with peace, and for the first time in a long time, he felt grounded. As for Amina, she had found more than just a helping hand. She had found someone who believed in her when the world had turned its back. Tari, on the other hand, had never been one to take things lying down. Oh no, the humiliation she felt after being tossed out of Lekan's house like a piece of discarded fabric burned in her chest like a raging fire. How could he, Lekan, the man she thought she had wrapped around her finger, choose that village girl, Amina, over her? The thought alone was enough to make her blood boil. She had become a laughingstock among her friends. So, in the depths of her anger, she devised a plan, a devious one. If Lekan thought he could just toss her aside and live happily ever after with that village girl, he had another thing coming. Tari met some thugs, a bit of cash exchanged, and the wheels of her revenge were set in motion. One afternoon, Tari had predicted that Lekan wouldn't be at home. It was the perfect opportunity. The thugs arrived at Lekan's house. They pounced on the unsuspecting gateman, delivering a few hard blows. Meanwhile, Amina was inside, watching TV, unaware of the chaos unfolding outside. Amina's heart raced as she saw the three men storm in. Before she could react, they grabbed her, trying to drag her out of the house. She struggled, kicking and screaming thunder and storm, but they thought she was crazy. Suddenly, two massive, well-trained Borbors Lekan had brought into the household came running. The dogs had been lying quietly in their corner, but now, they pounced on the thugs, growling and snapping with fierce intensity. The dogs clamped down one of the thug's legs, sending him howling in pain. The other two, seeing their comrade fall, flee for their lives. Tari, who had been hiding outside, watching the scene unfold, was frozen in terror. She had expected the thugs to handle things quickly, but the dogs, she hadn't anticipated them. In her panic, she tried to run, but in her haste, she tripped over the front step, landing hard on her knee with a sickening crunch. The pain shot through her leg like lightning, and she screamed. with the thugs long gone and one of them writhing on the ground in pain. It wasn't long before the police arrived. It was quite the scene. Tari, the once glamorous city girl, now lying on the ground, was arrested. Lekan, arriving shortly after, took in the scene. Relief washed over him as he saw Amina, safe and sound. The dogs had done their job well, and once again he was reminded that he had made the right choice. After the chaos with Tari, peace settled over Lekan's home like a gentle breeze. The tension of the past days had lifted, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Lekan could finally breathe. As he walked into the house, the aroma of freshly cooked food lingered, but there was something even more calming than that, a sense of security. He found Amina resting on the couch, her eyes closed, her face serene. He smiled, grateful that she was safe. Approaching her softly, he placed a hand on her shoulder. "Amina," he said, his voice gentle yet firm. She opened her eyes, blinking away the remnants of sleep. "You don't have to worry anymore. I'll take care of everything. You can go back to school and continue your education. I'll help you in every way I can." Amina's eyes widened, a spark of hope flickering behind her calm demeanor. For so long, the dream of finishing university had felt like a distant, unattainable fantasy. But here was Lekan, offering her a future that went beyond just material comfort, a chance to fulfill her deepest aspirations. The gratitude in her eyes said it all. With Lekan's influence and connections, getting her back into school was smoother than she could have ever imagined. The next few months flew by as Amina re-enrolled at the university, determined to finish what she had started years ago. Though her journey was not without its challenges, she approached her studies with the same grace and perseverance she had shown in life. Lekan stood by her, encouraging her at every step. And then, the big day arrived, graduation. The sun shone brightly over the university courtyard as students, parents, and loved ones gathered to celebrate the graduates. Amina stood among them, radiant in her cap and gown, her heart full of pride and accomplishment. But little did she know, the day was about to become even more unforgettable. As the ceremony drew to a close and everyone cheered, Lekan appeared from the crowd, his heart racing. "Amina," he began, his eyes locked on hers. The entire audience seemed to disappear as the world shrunk to just the two of them. "You are the most incredible woman I've ever known. Your strength, your resilience, your heart. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Amina gasped, tears filling her eyes as the weight of his words sank in. She glanced around, seeing everyone's expectant faces, but her gaze quickly returned to Lekan, who was now down on one knee, holding out a ring that sparkled in the sunlight. Without a moment of hesitation, she whispered, "Yes." The crowd erupted into cheers, and in that moment, it was as though the universe itself celebrated their union. The months of struggle, the battles fought, and the tears shed all led to this, the beginning of something beautiful. A month later, the wedding took place in Kejala village, and it was nothing short of a spectacle. The people of Kejala had never seen such a grand affair. From the beautifully decorated canopies to the sounds of traditional drummers, the air buzzed with excitement. The entire village gathered to witness what would go down as the biggest wedding celebration in Kejala's history. Amina was breathtaking in her traditional attire, her beauty magnified by the joy that radiated from her. Lekan, equally striking in his regal outfit, couldn't take his eyes off his bride. The ceremony was filled with laughter, music, and heartfelt speeches as both families came together in a way that made the entire village proud. As the sun dipped behind the hills and the festivities continued into the night, the people of Kejala would speak of this day for generations to come. Lekan and Amina's love story had become more than just theirs. It was now a tale that would be passed down, reminding everyone that no matter where you come from or the challenges you face, love, humility, and perseverance can build something truly remarkable. Subscribe to Savannah Storytime for more stories that portrays the African culture and tradition.